This is Baltimore City Council Judiciary and Legislative Investigations Committee. We're here for Council Bill 17-0117, Food Service Facilities, Polystyrene Foam Products. Before we begin, a couple of quick ground rules. If you have a cell phone on you, would you please turn it off or to vibrate or to silent? Anything that does not ring. We're going to start off with introductions of who's here from the council and the mayor's office. My name's Eric Costello. I'm the councilman from the 11th District, and I'm chair of the committee. I'm joined to my right by Council President Bernard C. Jack Young. To my immediate left by Councilman John Bullock from the 9th District, member of the committee and chief sponsor of the legislation. To his left, Councilwoman Mary Pat Clark from the 14th District and vice chairwoman of the committee. To her immediate left, Councilman Chris Burnett from the 8th District. And to his left, Councilman Ed Reisinger from the 10th District, member of the committee. I've also been joined by Councilman Zeke Cohen from the 1st District. To my immediate right is DePaul Nibber, staff to the committee. Walking in is Richard Krummerich from Office of Council Services. We're joined by Karen Stokes and Karan Banks representing Mayor Catherine Pugh. And then to the right of Council President Young is Kara Kuntz, Legislative Director for the Council President, and Liam Davis from Kara Kuntz's office. Okay, what we're going to do is I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Councilman Bullock, in a minute. We do have a lot of folks here that are signed in to testify. I certainly appreciate everyone coming down to City Hall today. We have a number of city agencies that are going to give reports. So what we do during these hearings, just so we set expectations for everyone, because we're going to be here for a while today, we usually start off with these introductions and ground rules. Then we will go to the sponsor of the legislation to say some remarks on why we're here and why the legislation was introduced. And then we will start with each of the agencies that have provided an agency comments report. So anytime that we have a piece of legislation in front of the council president refers it to different agencies to comment on that legislation. So in this case, there are health impacts associated with this bill. So the health department is going to be one of the agencies that's going to comment. There are also business aspects associated with this bill. So the Baltimore Development Corporation is the agency responsible for that, and they're going to make comments on it. So we're going to go through each of the agencies, and then we're going to give our council colleagues an opportunity to ask each of those agency representatives questions on what their agency comments report said, and then we're going to go into public testimony. Depending on how many people have signed up to testify, we'll likely put a limit on the length of the testimony. I'm going to ask that everyone adhere to that limit out of courtesy for everyone else here who has come down to City Hall to testify today. There's seating up in the balcony. We're pretty much at capacity in chambers right now. There's also an overflow room in the current room. For those of you on the 6th floor, if you come down to the 4th floor on the elevator or stairs and come toward chambers, that room is right behind us. I know it's a little toasty in here, so if you feel like you're getting hot, there's a water fountain out there on the 4th floor, and you can go into the current room in the back. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over to Councilman Bullock.
Thank you, Chairman Costello. Just really wanted to thank everyone who's come out to support this. Definitely the advocates who've been fighting for many years regarding this. Also want to thank City Council President Bernard C. Jack Young for his leadership and also working with us on this issue. Again, we recognize that this is a process. It's a legislative process, and so it's not always easy, but it's taken years for us to get to this point, and we think we're in the right place for this. Honestly, it's important for us to be better stewards of the environment, right? We look at the impact of polystyrene as it relates to much of the litter in our city. We look at the impact on our waterways, and so it's important for us to take a step forward in this. We also recognize the difficulty in recycling polystyrene, the fact that it's not biodegradable. These are serious concerns, not only for now, but in the future. What are we doing to take care of our current society? Also, it's important for us to look at this transition to more sustainable options and solutions. Again, we have to be more forward thinking. What are we going to do with the world that we give to our children and our grandchildren and their children? I do recognize, and we've talked about this in terms of the impact on business. We know that there is a minimal cost difference, but we do believe that that's important as it relates to investing in our environment. So we have to do a cost benefit analysis. Other jurisdictions in this, have done this. We're looking at Washington, D.C., Prince George's County, and quite frankly, even the state of Maryland in the General Assembly is looking at this year. We would like Baltimore to be leaders in this cause. We can take the lead and show others that this is such an important issue that we're going to take a stand on it. I'm also thankful for some of the city agencies that are here that are going to be supportive. Looking at the health department, again, their primary focus is the health of Baltimore citizens and the fact that they think this is a positive step. City schools, our young people that are here today, I'm so thankful to have these young people here because they're getting a learning, being part of this process today, they're getting a great learning experience, and city schools has already moved away from using polystyrene. Also, organizations like the Baltimore Office for Promotion of the Arts, they've taken it out of their vendors, and then even the aquarium. The aquarium is such a benefit to our city, and thinking about our waterways we treasure so much, we have to make sure that we do the best that we can to make sure that we have a livable future. So I won't spend much more time talking, but just want to thank those who are here, also my colleagues who are co-sponsors of this legislation, and also the members of the committee who have opened their ears and eyes and had conversations around this, and we look forward to having a fruitful discussion today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilman Bullock. Council President Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I want to congratulate Chairman Bullock on his effort to make sure that this bill get a hearing and that we support this very important piece of legislation. I asked a few kids out in the area out there, I said, how many of you have, because they was holding the cups, ever thrown these cups on the ground? I said, be honest, and they say yes. So I want them to learn a lesson that as we go to phase out this, we can't phase out and ban everything. And you as young people have a responsibility to not trash your city. Don't throw things in the gutters because it goes down the stream into the bay. So I hope that's going to be a learning experience for most of you young people that are here today, that you got to make sure, you have to make sure that you're not a part of the problem. And I just want to make that perfectly clear. And thank Councilman Chairman Bullock for his effort meeting with me to convince me that this hearing need to take place. But it was some kids that really got to me in a very good way. I think Eric Costello had some kids here. I don't know what other councilman had some kids here. And they were not coached by adults. And that really touched me, that they could advocate for a ban on something they believe was very toxic and dangerous for their environment. And those kids convinced me. I asked them questions, and they came back with tough answers. And I was like, wow, I better not ask them another question, because they were really educated and knew exactly what they wanted to say and how they wanted to say it. So I want to congratulate those schools. I forgot what schools they were that had kids here. And I thought I was coming in here just to say hi, tell them I was the president, tell them about the building, and tell them about committees and what my job is. They didn't want to hear none of that. They wanted to hear, was I supporting a ban? So again, congratulations to those children. And I can't say it enough, the Chairman Bullock, for a yeoman's job and convincing me that this need to have this hearing. So I'm looking forward to all the dialogue, and hopefully we can get a win-win out of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're going to start off with Baltimore City Public School System. If you could say your name and what your position is, please.
Elizabeth Marquetta. I'm the Director of Food and Nutrition Services for Baltimore City Public Schools.
And your position and your report is favorable?
Yes.
And you all stand by that?
Yes.
Thank you. Baltimore Office of Promotion in the Arts? Yes. Can you come up and grab a mic, please? For anyone who's speaking, please make sure that you speak into the microphone. This hearing is being broadcast on Charm TV on Channel 25, and it's also being streamed online. So the only way that folks that are listening will be able to hear you is if you speak into the microphone. Thank you.
Okay, my name is Sandy Lawler. I am the Food and Beverage and Farmers Market Manager for the Baltimore Office of Promotion of the Arts. We support the bill. We have implemented a ban on styrofoam at all of our events since the beginning of 2016. That runs from the Farmers Market to Light City to Artscape to Book Festival. And all of our vendors have totally appreciated that, gone with that. Snow cones, maybe not so much, but they got used to it. You know, they survived Artscape and selling snow cones with paper cups like everybody else, like we did when we were kids, so, or I did. So we totally support the bill, and we hope to see it go through.
Thank you. Law?
Good morning. I'm Vic Turvela from the City Law Department. The Law Department believes that the city has sufficient police power to pass this ordinance. There are no constitutional issues that would bar this ordinance from being adopted, so we would be inclined to approve the bill for form and legal sufficiency as drafted.
Thank you. And Victor, can you take a second and give a 30-second rundown of what it means when Law Department approves a bill for form and legal sufficiency, just for everyone watching?
Under the city charter, the Law Department is required to look at every legal piece of business that goes through the city. So when we have a bill before the city council, we have to make sure that it is legally sufficient for the council to pass. There's usually a lot of standards that have to be met, and in this case, all the standards have been met.
Thank you. Health?
Good morning, Jeff Amherst on behalf of the Health Department, and I have Assistant Commissioner of Environmental Health Mary Beth Haller here as well. We're in support of this legislation. We do think the council should adjust the language on polystyrene products to assist with enforcement efforts, and we're here to answer questions on that if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Amorose. And I assume we'll be having a discussion at some point with Health before we vote on the bill. So thank you. Environmental Control Board, Ms. Wood?
Thank you. Good morning. We have no objection to the bill.
Thank you very much. Department of Finance, Pedro?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We support the bill. We think that environmental and health issues related to this type of product is important, and I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. And I want to hear what the constitutions are saying about it.
Thank you. Office of Sustainability?
Sorry, I'm left-handed. Lisa McNeely, the Director of Sustainability. The Office of Sustainability stands by a report that this bill supports several goals in the city sustainability plan, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
And you have proposed amendments?
Yes, we had just recommended that the council look at the possibility of a waiver or some other means to look at some of the cost issues that were raised, and suggested potentially releasing a list of vendors, and just had a question about whether or not criminal penalties would be needed.
Thank you. And Mr. Amorose, did you touch on what health, or you didn't have any amendments, correct?
Not at this time, no.
Got it. Thanks, Jeff. Baltimore Development Corporation?
Kristen Dawson on behalf of the Baltimore Development Corporation. We stand by our response, which was no objection to the bill. We did want to note that we recommended a longer phase-in period to allow for small businesses to adapt.
Got it. Any other proposed amendments from BDC? Thank you. Colleagues, any questions for city agencies? And we've also been joined by Councilman Leon Pinkett from the 7th District, member of the committee. We're going to jump into public testimony now. Do we have an order on it? Okay. All right. We're going to start off with Brian Traw from the Laurelville Business Association. Can you do the timer? Give me 1 second before you get started, sir, please. Do we have more sign-in sheets? Can you grab the sign-in sheet? Thanks. All right, go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Brian Truex with the Laurelville Business Association. We are in favor of the bill. The economic impact of cleaning up styrofoam seems to be great, and the health costs associated with the impact of styrofoam seems to be great. That's it.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much. Jessica Martin.
Thank you, Chair Costello, for this time and for granting me my time to be here. My name is Jessica Winter Martin of Energy Justice Network, and I have a few things to say. First, of course, thank you all for being here today. It is a wonderful thing that we're all making strides towards zero waste in the city, and I'm very appreciative of the city taking a stand, as many other areas have, including, of course, Montgomery County, PG County, and Washington, D.C., which have all made moves towards banning PSP, or polystyrene, also known as styrofoam. As we all know, polystyrene is made from a styrene monomer, which is a known neurotoxin. And so the primary use of PSP or styrofoam is used for food service, which has a great impact on our health, which has been cited already, which creates a tremendous cost for the city. And making a transition towards zero waste and moving away from PSP or styrofoam, we can move towards compostable packaging options, which will minimize the health impact, which will offset the cost. There's also effects not just on the consumer, but on the workers who are making these facilities. If there's anything I would make to consider after having read the text, which is very well written and very strongly written, though there are some minor exemptions which could be tightened up to affect some of the most vulnerable communities. If it's possible to clarify that social service organizations, child care centers, nursing facilities, hospitals, detention facilities, and schools are not exempt. As now, the example of businesses that are covered by the definition of food service in this city are restaurants, grocery stores, mobile food carts, bars, taverns, market stalls, public and private schools, but there may be some exemptions there, caterers, special event food vendors, summer camps, bakeries, and church kitchens. So as you see, our child care centers, social service centers, hospitals, detention facilities, and nursing facilities may be exempt. These places are serving our most vulnerable populations, which will affect not only the workers, but as you can see, these very vulnerable residents of our city and our community. By adding, if possible, these minor adjustments or amendments, you will show, again, another great example for the rest of our state as we move forward to ensure that all people who are maybe served any and all food items whatsoever, whether it's not for sale, but maybe given away as charity, will also be covered. Let's not also limit the bill just to polystyrene foam, but to any form of polystyrene, as in not to just expanded polystyrene, but any form of polystyrene, which may include our firm cups, takeout containers, clamshells, and plastic cutlery, which are often made from a clear, white, or colored rigid form of polystyrene.
You're about 30 seconds over, so
I apologize. I will finish right up.
Thank you.
But just as well, just including this, which may also affect many other forms of food, as all forms of polystyrene contain styrene monomer, which is carcinogenic. I want to thank you again for my time as I've gone over, and I appreciate your service. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We've also been joined by Councilwoman Shannon Sneed from the 13th District. Next up, we have Phil Quick. And if you could also say make sure you say, in addition to your name, the organization you're with, or company or business, or whatever the case may be.
I'm Phil Quick. I'm with Jay's Restaurant Group, Jay's Catering. We have currently 5 health permits in Baltimore City, so we have a lot of locations. We are not a huge polystyrene user, but we do use cups, and we chose to use those cups a few years ago, I'd say probably 5 or 6 years ago, because not because it was a cheaper option, because it was a better option. It was a better vessel for hot beverages, and it was a better vessel for cold beverages. So, that was a win-win for us, and there's not too many win-wins in the restaurant industry lately. So, if we can use better products and save money, that's definitely a win-win. And right now, we could use all the help we could get because it's tough out there right now in business. So savings is definitely something that we need, not more spending. Just for me, to use a paper cup or a plastic cup will cost about $5,000 more a year. And we can't absorb that cost. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Quick. David Stahl.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here to speak as, until 10 days ago, the owner of a small restaurant in Baltimore City. For 14 years, I owned Pete's Grill, a rather established, primarily known as a breakfast place in Waverly up at the corner of 32nd and Greenmount. I'm opposed to the ban, and I'd like to take a minute to tell you why. The restaurant business, generally speaking, folks, in all categories, I come from the point of view of a small restaurant, but I can tell you across the board, restaurants in our city are struggling. Our traffic is down. In the case of my restaurant, which has historically been about a 90% dine-in business and a 10% carry-out business, in the last 24 months, my dine-in sales have gone from 90% of my business to slightly less than half my business. That is a cataclysmic change. And it cuts across all sectors. In part, it's because our economy isn't healthy. In part, it's because people are afraid to come to my restaurant. They're concerned about crime. Somebody painted no kill zone at my front door a few weeks ago. People ask me, and I've never been asked this in all the time I've done business in this city, which is a lifetime, is it safe to come to your place of business? These are the factors that we're dealing with. And we would be in very serious trouble as small restaurants were we not given a reprieve several years ago. And that reprieve was the advent of delivery services. And you probably are very well familiar with them. We're talking about the Uber Eats and the Grubhubs of the world. Most of us put our foot in that water to test it. And most of us, like myself, after a few months of successful experience, jumped into that business full throttle. We needed an additional source of revenue. Our traditional source of revenue is vanishing. We jumped in at my restaurant fully into delivery in February of last year. And at 12/31, which is my fiscal year, delivery sales were 50% of our business. Were it not for that, I don't know if I'd be here. In fact, I've sold the restaurant. I've actually have to say I've given up.
Mr. Stahl, I'm going to have to kindly ask you to please wrap up. You're about 30 seconds past your time, sir.
Thank you, sir. That business comes with a cost. The delivery business, it comes with a cost to the deliverer. It comes with with packaging costs. The packaging costs are often described as modest. Councilman Bullock used the word modest today. They're not modest. They're 250% to 300% increases, and our industry can't sustain them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stahl. Council President Young?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted you to know that we have like 77 restaurants who are in the city of Baltimore who have sent support letters. So if they're, and some of these are small, and some of them are large, if they're able to absorb it, I just want to know what would keep you from absorbing the cost.
Mr. Stahl, microphone, please. Thank you.
The margins are thin in our business to begin with. I don't know what kind of businesses those folks have. They might be vastly different than mine. But I'm in Waverly, and we have a price. We're at best a moderate income neighborhood, and I don't have pricing flexibility. I'm perceived as expensive now, so I can't raise prices.
All right, because you don't have to respond, but on this list are restaurants in Charles Village, in Little Italy, in Locust Point. Some of them in East Baltimore, some are downtown. They from all over. It's about 77 restaurants who say they support the ban. And most of them are similar to your business.
Well, I don't know who they are, so I can't confirm that they're similar to my business, but I could find you, I'm sure, hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds who would disagree. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Adam Lindquist.
Good morning. My name is Adam Lindquist. I'm with the Waterfront Partnership of Baltimore. We're a coalition of businesses in waterfront communities in the city. And my board has sent me here with a message, and that is that it is time for foam to go. We surveyed businesses in our districts and found that a majority of them have already stopped using styrofoam, and it didn't matter if they were small or large, if they were expensive or affordable. They recognized the issue and they made a change. And it's time for the rest of the city to follow suit. We run Mr. Trash Wheel down in the Inner Harbor, a trash interceptor that has collected over 700,000 pieces of polystyrene containers that have been pulled from the harbor. And I actually brought with me this photo. We actually had volunteers come out and pull the polystyrene containers out of the trash wheel to count how many we would find. We found, this is a picture of about 1,400 polystyrene containers in 1/8 of a trash wheel dumpster. And we've picked up over 240 dumpsters of trash out of the Baltimore Harbor. And it costs us money. It's the Baltimore business community that is funding Mr. Trash Wheel to pull that styrofoam out of the Baltimore Harbor. And we would rather be using that money to do things like build new parks. So we urge the City Council to please pass this bill out of committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for your service on the Stormwater Oversight Remediation Committee. I know Council President Young appointed you to that, and it's been an absolute pleasure to work with you on that committee. Next up, we have Allie Dizard. Did I say that right?
Hi, thank you. Allie Dysart. I'm the Environmental and Partnership Manager for Mom's Organic Market. Mom's is based in Rockville, and we have 18 stores, total 9 in the state of Maryland and 1 here in the Hampton neighborhood in Baltimore. I'm also a resident of this great city. I reside in Federal Hill, and on a daily basis, I watch styrofoam wash down our storm drains and into the harbor, and I know what a negative environmental impact it has on our ecosystem. We're speaking in support of this bill, phasing out the expanded use of polystyrene. At Mom's, we've already banned the foam, and our stores have made the switch to recyclable and compostable food packaging alternatives. I encourage all Baltimore businesses to also stand up for their communities and their neighborhoods and make the switch as well. While it may seem cheap, the deleterious effects it has on our environment are apparent. As a fellow local business who has made the transition, I'd be thrilled to share any information on how we've implemented our earth-friendly packaging initiatives, including SOPs, contacts, pricing, disposal, and more. We would also be supportive of joining a bulk purchasing co-op for non-styrofoam alternative products to help lower the cost for other Baltimore area businesses, and I wish those people were still here who had just spoke before me. Banning styrofoam in Baltimore City would be a huge step towards protecting our natural resources, wildlife, harbor, and bay, and I'm very excited that Baltimore City is taking this progressive step forward and rethinking its waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie. Councilman Bullock?
Just one quick question. Thank you for your testimony, and it's also good to hear from a business who's made that transition. Can you talk about what the price differential has been for you and how you've been able to make that work? And then also talking about the fact that you're doing the bulk purchasing, because again, that also makes things cost effective. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So I can get you the numbers as far as the price differential, but then with the bulk pricing, we have a warehouse in Jessup and then in College Park, so we would have to discuss, how we could order more, and then maybe if somebody needed to purchase it from us, if we buy the bulk in quantity, we can assist in that way.
Thanks, Allie. If you could email that to me, and I'll make sure we get it out to the committee.
Yeah, thanks.
Councilman Pinkett?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my question possibly could wait until after all of the testimonies, but I wasn't sure if anybody from DPW was here, solid waste. Can
can we try and get someone over here right now, please? And thank you. Appreciate it. Councilman Cohen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to moms and all the business owners who've shown up today, either in support or opposition. I see Eki Ben is also in the house. Good to see you. Did want to share briefly, there was a gentleman who wrote to me, small business owner that was not able to make it. He said, we on the council have received a number of emails opposing the ban. He was one of them. He then wrote to me, actually, I had mistakenly signed a petition online through a Facebook post from the Maryland Small Business Coalition, not realizing it was against banning/regulating certain types of food containers used by businesses. I actually agree with the legislation and would like to recant/rescind the statement, as I'm in total support of the ban. I'm guessing this coalition must have set up the petition in such a way that auto responses would be forwarded to city council member addresses. All that to say, there are a great number of business owners, as the president pointed out, that are in support of this legislation, and I thank them for stepping up and stepping forward, as well as all the young people that are here today.
Cheryl Bryant?
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to speak today. My name is Reverend Cheryl Bryant, and I've lived in Baltimore City for over 60 years. I am the chair of the Friends of the Library Square Committee of the Patterson Park Neighborhood Association and the Director of Christian Education at Freedom Baptist Missionary Church located in the Bel Air, Addison area of Baltimore City. I'm here today to show my support of prohibiting food service facilities from using disposable food serviceware made from polystyrene foam. As a minister of the gospel, I understand that God has placed mankind on this earth to be good stewards of our environment. This is a job that we can't afford to take lightly. We have to take care of our environment to ensure a healthy place for us to live in now and to guarantee a healthier, cleaner legacy for our children and future generations to live in. Thankfully, the mayor and city council have already established a goal of zero waste. Banning polystyrene is a hopeful first step. We must begin to eliminate use items from our waste stream to reach a goal of zero waste. In order to change the behavior of our friends and neighborhoods, we must raise the public consciousness and support policies like this that help to educate our peers. The alternatives are not perfect, but at the very least, they are recyclable and much easier to clean up from our streets and waterways. I consider polystyrene as one of the biggest threats to our environment. It is extremely dangerous because it is all around us, and most of us use it every day, completely unaware of its dangers. As an organizer of neighborhood cleanups in Northeast Baltimore City, I see pounds and pounds of discarded polystyrene clogging our drains and preventing proper water runoff to our sewers that leads to floods. Recently, we had ankle-deep water on my block. I see polystyrene ruining the picturesque views of our park landscapes while choking our birds who can mistake the little pieces for food. As a senior citizen on a fixed income, I would gladly pay the 2 to 6 cents more it may cost for ordering food in recyclable or compostable containers. For me, getting to-go food is a luxury anyway, so the real cost of the toxin polystyrene is this product will outlive me and be passed down to my grandchildren to deal with. One last line. Baltimore can do this. We can be the leaders of this shift of consciousness. We can show the entire state that Baltimore is a city who are good stewards that God wants us to be. Let Baltimore be the change and light the way for zero waste by banning polystyrene now. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Bill Blystone. Thompson, but this is Bill Blackstone.
Good morning.
Just one point of order. Props are welcome and educational. Moving forward, if anyone has props, what we're going to do is when I call your name, please let me know that you have a prop, and we're going to skip over you to the next person. And during that 2 minutes, you can get your stuff set up just so we keep the flow of the hearing moving. So, Mr. Blystone.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, and pardon me, we've been joined by Councilman Yitzi Schleifer from the 5th District, as well as Councilman Brandon Scott from the 2nd District, member of the committee. Mr. Blystone, please.
Okay, thank you. The reason I'm here is because, number one, I oppose the ban. But I've been in the food service packaging industry for 35 years. Our company, E.K. Lay, we represent 17 different manufacturers in the food service packaging business. We sell to the distributors who in turn sell to the restaurant owners and other food service establishments. And what I have found and what I have learned, and I know, is that the ultimate burden of this polystyrene ban is going to hurt the businesses that use food service packaging, and ultimately the customers who go into these establishments to buy product. What I put up here are 4 different items, all made by one manufacturer that we represent, Genpack. There's a foam container at 9 cents a cost. There's a fiber product that comes in from overseas at 27 cents a container. There's a polypropylene product down here on the bottom, comes in at 32 cents, and then a clear polypropylene product at 40 cents. Now, this food service industry is a penny's business. An operator cannot take his cost and go from 9 cents to even the less expensive option at 27 cents and not pass that extra cost on to the consumer. It's not pennies, it's significant amounts of money. The next point I wanted to make was I've heard people mention about littering and the waterways and things, and believe me, I'm 100% for beautification and taking care of our environment. But water down at the Inner Harbor is not a styrene problem, it's a littering problem. And what's going to be floating on top of the water there may not be a foam hinge container, it's going to be something else. Or worst case yet, it's going to be at the bottom of the bay, affecting the environment there. I'm for free markets. I'm a commissioned salesperson. I'm much better off selling someone a 40-cent container than I am a 9-cent container. I make more money. But at the same time, I'm thinking of the businesses and the people, and I know that these costs will affect them on a daily basis. And so finally I would say is I'm for free markets. Let the consumer decide. If there's a deli down the street that's only using foam and you don't approve of that, don't patronize their business. If you approve of what they're using in the food they service and all the rest, then you do support their business. And the market will decide, and the market will dictate to the owner of the businesses what type of packaging he needs to use. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Blystone. Melvin Thompson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Members of the committee, I'm Melvin Thompson. I represent the Restaurant Association of Maryland, and we too are opposed to this legislation. And let me start by addressing a point that was raised by Council President Jack Young regarding the 77 restaurants that have sent you letters supporting this. We don't know what kind of restaurants those are, what they're currently using. Yes, we did hear from some of our members in the city that they were approached by supporters of the ban, asking them to sign petitions or letters supporting it. But what was not clear was whether these were restaurants that were using polystyrene foam containers in the first place. These proponents did not ask that question. They simply asked these restaurants if they would support such a ban. So if these restaurants are not currently using any type of styrofoam product, then their opinion really is irrelevant in this debate. What's important here is the cost to the restaurants that are currently using polystyrene foam. And if they're currently spending $1,000 a year on those products, this will likely cost them $2,000 to $3,000 for the alternatives. That's the bottom line for these operators. And our industry operates on a very narrow 4% profit margin. It's also important to note that there is no infrastructure in Baltimore City right now for composting any alternatives or recycling. According to the Department of Public Works, they don't even collect any type of alternative carry-out or take-out food container in their curbside recycling program. And there's no composting infrastructure either. So a lot of these alternatives will end up in the landfill or incinerator. So it makes absolutely no sense to force these businesses to spend so much more for alternatives that will largely end up in the same incinerator or landfill. And our industry is really going through a tough time right now, and I've attached to my written testimony some numbers that show you how the industry is performing in Baltimore City and the net year-over-year change compared to the surrounding jurisdictions of Anne Arundel and Baltimore County. And you can see that restaurants are suffering relative to those two jurisdictions. And you've also seen reports confirming this in the media lately. This isn't me trying to paint this gloom and doom picture. The media also confirms that, and I've attached that to the testimony as well. And a 40-year broker in the restaurant industry recently told the Baltimore Business Journal that it's always been in and out, but being in the business for 40 years, this is the most I've seen closing up at any one time. Jerry Blumenthal said that from BCV Commercial Realty. It's real, folks. Our industry is hurting right now, and the food service industry is a tough business as it is.
Mr. Thompson, I have to kindly ask that you wrap up. You're
Okay.
about 30 seconds past.
Okay, I'll finish up here. These are huge challenges for our industry, and this is a huge cost increase with no measurable benefit. And it's not just this issue. There are 3 bills right now pending before this committee that target the restaurant industry. And so, given those concerns and the cost to our industry, we strongly oppose this legislation and would urge this committee to reject it. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Mr. Thompson, thank you for coming here today. You started off by talking about the 77 restaurants that sent letters of support or said they support this legislation. Out of the thousands of food service facilities or hundreds of food service facilities in Baltimore, how many does your organization actually represent, dues-paying members to your organization?
We have about 300 members in the city of Baltimore out of a total number of restaurants of about 1,500.
So the majority of the restaurants in the city are not in your organization, correct?
That is correct.
So it would be safe to say that you do not represent the will and the beliefs of the majority of the restaurants in Baltimore City, correct?
Well, let me just say, council member, that the restaurants that belong to our association do so because we fight for the interests of their business. So those businesses in the city who are members of ours, who are struggling to survive right now and oppose this legislation because of the huge increase on their operating costs, those are the businesses that we represent, and we are speaking for those businesses, council member.
So the answer is no to my original question. And more importantly, while we understand and we appreciate restaurants and we know what they mean to Baltimore and to Baltimore's history, and as the sponsor of the other 2 bills that you mentioned, we also know that Baltimore citizens want change. They want a Baltimore to be better, not just now, not just the same way that it has been for at least the 33 years that I've been alive, but for the future, and not looking to just today, and improving on Baltimore, making sure that they have a cleaner Baltimore, making sure that they're eating at healthy restaurants, making sure that children are not overly taking in sugary drinks. And I think it would be very prudent for the industry to understand that folks want change, and if you're a part of that change, people will still support you. But coming in opposition, propping yourself up like you're representing all of the restaurants in Baltimore City, the majority of them, when you don't, it's just very disruptive to the whole industry. Thank you.
And council member, let me add that this legislation and the other 2 bills only further exacerbate the challenges operationally that our industry is facing right now. And when the 300 restaurants that we represent are concerned about this issue, and I call to ask about all of these bills among our members, the question they ask me is, who is declaring war on restaurants in Baltimore City when we're obviously facing the most unprecedented operational challenges that we've ever faced recently? And I don't know the answer to that question, but they do feel as though their businesses are being targeted.
So, lastly, Mr. Thompson, before we move on, no one's declaring war on the restaurants in Baltimore. What we are declaring war on is the ways of the past that do not benefit all Baltimoreans, that do not benefit Baltimoreans who are yet to be born, that does not have a Baltimore and a industry, because I've spoken to many restaurant owners who support these bills, who support not having sugary drinks for children, who support having public displays of reports for food service facilities, who support a styrofoam ban. This is what we're about. It's about change for the benefit of all Baltimoreans. And I can't say that enough. It's all Baltimoreans, not just some. Thank you.
But Councilman, there is no infrastructure in the city right now for the alternatives, either through recycling or composting. So again, the cost increase to our industry, this cost increase for most folks is just money in the garbage, because that's where a lot of these alternative products will go.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Mr. Blystone, I had a quick question for you.
Thank you.
Come back up. You had the show and tell thing. You had 4 products, one of which I'm assuming is number 6, and the other 3 are not.
Correct.
The 9-cent product is number 6. The other 3 are not. Correct.
Correct.
Just out of curiosity, does that manufacturer make? I believe the next price point was 27 cents, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
Do they make any products in between the 9 and 27 cent price range in a similar size?
Not currently. And it's not just this manufacturer, Genpack. We compete with, or Genpack competes with many other manufacturers in this industry who make very like products. And the industry is looking for an alternative, something to fall in between that price point. But as of yet, today, no one's been able to develop it because of the material. The polystyrene is an inexpensive resin. Polypropylene, PET, your fiber products are much more expensive material, especially like the fiber that I mentioned that comes from overseas. None of that's even made in the United States today, although there's about 5 or 6 companies that sell this product. To make this product, and I've never been over to the overseas to see it, but there's a tremendous amount of water used to make fiber products, and then you have to ship it across the oceans to get it here. The carbon footprint on a lot of these other materials is much higher than a polystyrene. You talk about incineration. Nothing burns better or faster or hotter than polystyrene. This is used. Fairfax County gets a lot of their electrical power from incinerator, their incinerator they have. And they use polystyrene there. They used it for years in their school district on their foam trays. I've actually had the people in the food service industry, food service business right there say to me that they get calls from the incinerator people, send us more trays, because to make the fire burn hotter. Now, I have to admit that they made a decision to move away from foam a year or 2 ago, but again, that was made by public pressure, not because if you ask the people that run the food service industry there, if that was the best decision to make.
Thank you, Mr. Blystone. Councilman Bullock?
Just a couple quick follow-up points. So just where you left off, it's probably not the best argument that we heard in terms of incineration. We look at the air quality in Baltimore. We look at the impacts on health. And I know some of our environmental advocates will be talking about some of those issues. The other part, again, looking at where those products are being produced. I know that there are some domestic manufacturers. So I can imagine that cost differential has to do with going overseas to get it when there are some alternative products that can be done locally. Last thing that I'll say, and I found this, and not so much from your testimony, but from some others, a little bit disingenuous when we start talking about the business climate in the city and start mentioning everything from crime and littering and all these other ancillary issues, but not dealing with this issue. So I appreciate my colleague, Councilman Scott, for bringing up some of those points. I do believe that we can be forward-thinking enough and have enough ingenuity to look at products that are in that middle price point. So I know some others will come up and testify to some of those issues. But I do appreciate you bringing your testimony. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
And
you.
I would
Thank-
say that the plastic industry, the manufacturers, they're always looking at new materials, new ways of doing things to keep the cost down and to provide a good quality product for takeout.
Right. Oh, thank you. And just one follow-up, I know this will come up again, but even the idea of something sitting in a landfill, if something's biodegradable versus something that's not, I think that makes a significant difference.
Thank you, Councilman. Claire Jordan?
Good morning, Chairman Costello and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comment on City Council Bill 17-0117, Food Service Facilities Polystyrene Foam Products. My name is Claire Jordan, and I am the Advocacy and Outreach Manager at Trash Free Maryland, a nonprofit organization working to prevent trash pollution through policy and behavior change. We base our work on the most significant contributors to trash pollution, identified through cleanup data and reports by local governments. Whether data comes from trash traps on Anacostia River tributaries, Mr. Trash Wheel on Jones Falls and the Inner Harbor, or volunteer cleanups around the state, we know most of this litter comes from food packaging. Expanded polystyrene foam food packaging is a major component of litter in Maryland's waterways. Among the Chesapeake Bay's tidal waters, the EPA has identified 3 regions of concern: Baltimore Harbor, the Anacostia River, and the Elizabeth River. Since 2014, 700 and 2017 EPS foam containers have been removed from the Baltimore Harbor alone by Mr. Trash Wheel, as my colleague Adam Lindquist mentioned. EPS foam comprises 25 to 40% of the trash by volume pulled from the Anacostia River before it was able to reach the Chesapeake Bay. Many businesses across the state are already switching away from foam to paper or rigid plastic containers to meet the demand of customers, those of which you will hear from today. In fact, we have 115 signatures of businesses who support this ban. And actually, to Mr. Melvin's point, we have specified which businesses are using foam currently and which are not. And the majority of the businesses that have signed on, the majority of the 115 businesses that have signed on to our petition are currently using foam. So they are aware of the need and desire to be good stewards of the environment. DC surveyed restaurants about their foam packaging use prior to their ban taking effect in 2016. Where data was available, our team was able to break it down by census tract, finding that areas were almost twice as likely to use foam if the census tract was majority non-white. These census tracts also had a median income $10,000 less than census tracts not distributing foam containers. We know that health outcomes are strongly correlated to zip code and social determinants. These statistics indicate yet another health and environmental burden on neighbors already dealing with higher levels of pollution and less access to healthy food. Alternative products are already on the market and often at a comparable cost. When demand for alternative shifts, the market responds. Enough jurisdictions in California have restricted foam use that foam now consistently costs more than paper alternatives in that region, according to research by the Institute for Local Self-Reliance. A consistent phase out by all businesses and institutions in Maryland is the fastest way to bring additional innovative and affordable packaging options to the market, because we know the market will respond. We applaud your commitment to giving this issue a closer look, and Trash Free Maryland looks forward to working with the committee to address it over the coming months. Thank you for your time this morning and your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Jordan. Angela Herron? Oh. Give me 1 second. Councilman Burnett.
Oh, thank you. So I'll just keep it short. You mind coming back up? One of the things that I think is very important in hearing feedback from some of the business owners, one of the things I think can really help with bringing back business into the restaurant industry in Baltimore City is good marketing. And if there's opportunities to collaborate with the health department or your organization, should this committee and the council pass this legislation to help businesses that make the switch promote that they have that. I think one of the really telling things about this hearing is we have a floor full of young people, future consumers in Baltimore City here being civically engaged, and they're listening and they're tuned in to what businesses are saying about the city and the environment. And I think if we really want to have a strong future for our kids, but also showing our young people that these are the type of businesses that they need to spend their money in, that Baltimore City businesses are doing the right thing, that are serving products that are biodegradable and good for the environment, are the kind of places that I know I would want to support, and I know that our young people are going to want to support as well. So if we can really help with marketing, I think it's a good thing.
Thank you.
Claire, can you hold on 1 second? Which school is heading out? Did you guys have someone that was testifying? Have they gotten a chance to testify yet? Can you send that person down right now so that your students can watch them? Who's here from Mount Royal Elementary? Ladies, can you come on up? Claire, can you pardon me for 1 minute? Thank you.
Do you want me to answer his comment? Or?
In 1 second. Thanks, Claire. Everyone from Mount Royal Elementary Middle back? All right, take your time. I know where to find you guys. You're in the 11th district. And I'll see you at the chili cook-off tomorrow night. It's one of my favorite events. Ladies, you ready? Can you tell me your names and what grade you're in?
I'm Jasmine, and I'm in the 7th grade. Jasmine, I'm in the 7th grade.
All right.
And I'm Nadia, I'm in the 7th grade.
Hi, Jasmine and Nadia. Thanks for coming.
Okay, so we personally believe that styrofoam should be banned because it is toxic to the health of students citywide. Because when students are served their food on styrofoam, the toxins from the styrofoam can be transferred to the food, and the chemicals in styrofoam could cause cancer. And because the students eat off these trays every day, it could make them more likely to get cancer.
I personally have done projects with the aquarium, and while I was there, I learned the negative effect that styrofoam has on marine life, and I learned that styrofoam is not biodegradable, and after people throw it away, it sticks around anywhere from 500 years to forever, and even after that, styrofoam only degrades into smaller pieces called microplastics.
And the microplastics are even more harmful to animals because they're smaller and harder for the animals to detect.
Overall, styrofoam is harmful to our environment in many ways, and therefore, styrofoam should be banned in Baltimore City. Thank you for allowing us
to voice our opinion.
Thank you, Nadia, Jasmine. And who's here from Federal Hill Prep? Yep.
They are.
Can we give them a mic?
There's a stool right in front of me.
They're going to give them the mic, Mary Pat. Yeah. Unless they want it. Is that Harlem Bar? Got you, nice.
You have to say your name and...
Hi, ladies. Can you tell us your names?
I'm Gabriella. And I'm London. To the City Council, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today on this important topic, styrofoam. I think it's time to put people's health ahead of corporate profits. American history is full of companies that no longer produce harmful products. Sometimes it happens naturally, but sometimes we have to take act. Gandhi once said, "Be the change you wish to see in the world." It's up to us, and therefore you as elected officials, to be the change and do the right thing. Thank you.
We should ban styrofoam because it is not a natural product, so it has to be manufactured with chemicals in it. When it gets wet, styrofoam releases those chemicals. Doing so contaminates the liquid touching it. Doctors are finding that styrofoam causes people to have different types of cancer.
Thank you very much. And lastly, one other school before we get back to normal testimony, Harlem Park.
Representing the 9th District, come on up.
Good morning. My name is Trinity Romeo. I'm a 5th grade student at Harlem Park Elementary Middle School. I am in support of Bill 170117, which seeks to phase out polystyrene. I'm thinking about our landfills and corner trash can. Both are filled of styrofoam containers from homes, fast food restaurants, and traditional restaurants. We should no longer use polystyrene because it will not break down and will remain on Earth just as it was when the food items were being held in it. So what alternatives are there to styrofoam? There are containers that are biodegradable. They are actually made from plant products. Such packaging for carry-out food would no longer be harmful for our environment. It can be used to and have a short landfill or composite life. I am the future. I'm depending on you, my representatives, to keep my neighborhood clean and protect the environment for my lifetime. This is why I'm in support of the ban on styrofoam. Thank you.
Just wanted to thank you so much for your testimony. Similar to the council president, I was very impressed by members of the Green team from Harlem Park. They came and asked some very intelligent questions, and they pushed us on this issue. So thank you so much for your testimony. Thank you.
We were at Angela, or I think there was a question for Claire, maybe. Who was?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to comment that when analyzing previous bans on foam in other jurisdictions, the number one factor in success is the education and outreach that's done by the designated agency. And specifically in Montgomery County and Prince George's County, they have compliance rates of over 90% because of the education and outreach that's been done. And we worked with those county councils to help establish those programs to make sure businesses understood what exactly they needed to be doing in order to comply. So we would be happy to work with any member of the committee and any agency at any point to help establish those outreach and education programs. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela?
Hi. Good morning, Chairman Costello and committee members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm Angela Herron, Director of Advocacy and Baltimore Harbor Waterkeeper with Blue Water Baltimore. The Baltimore Harbor and its tributaries face a number of pollution threats, not the least of which is trash. The problem has become so severe that MDE and EPA officially declared the harbor impaired for trash under the Clean Water Act, and in 2014 established a total daily maximum load for trash in the harbor. This is one of the first of its kind in the country. Not all trash is created equal. EPS foam is particularly damaging. It's petroleum-based and does not biodegrade. Instead, when littered, it makes its way into our waterways where it breaks down into smaller and smaller pieces. In my written testimony, I've included photos of local waters contaminated by the onslaught of EPS foam packaging. It's impossible to ever fully clean up and infects our waters. Peer-reviewed scientific articles have found that once in the water, EPS foam absorbs 10 times more pollutants than other types of plastic, thereby increasing toxin exposure to marine life. I'm often asked why banning EPS foam to-go containers would make a difference if it was replaced with something that might still be littered. And here's the answer. Some of the alternatives, like paper, biodegrade, and others, such as hard plastic, are easier to pick up through mechanical collection systems like Mr. Trash Wheel or community pickups. Alternatives also have the potential to be composted or recycled. Although some claim EPS foam is recyclable, this is misleading. Jurisdictions across the country have evaluated and concluded that used food service foam is not capable of being recycled in either an environmentally effective or economically feasible manner. I've included references to those studies in my written testimony as well. My own staff has attempted to recycle foam food containers at the DART facility on Sisson down the road from our office, but we were told that soiled food containers are landfilled there and not recycled. We know trash is a multifaceted problem. That is why Blue Water Baltimore sits on the Mayor's Sanitation Committee, and we work with local schools and community groups on education and community pickups. We strongly support this bill to eliminate EPS foam pollution. Thank you.
Thank you. Elise Bruner.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Elise Bruner. I'm the community organizer for Blue Water Baltimore, but I'm here on behalf of Ron Tooley, the owner of Mem Sahib Restaurant in Lexington Market. This is his statement. I chose to stop using expanded polystyrene food service products in 2017 when I learned more about the risk to human health and to our environment. Serving hot food or drinks in carry-out containers or cups can cause toxins to leach into the food and into our bodies. EPS is horrible for the environment because it never fully breaks down and is difficult to recycle. Despite the higher cost of alternative materials, I felt the risks to human and environmental health were too great. Therefore, I decided to stop using expanded polystyrene and start using more eco-friendly alternatives. Although alternatives are more expensive, I was able to cover the cost by raising my carry-out prices. There have been no complaints or reduction in business. Furthermore, many organizations like Johns Hopkins and Catholic Relief Services are interested in eco-friendly catering. In order to remain a viable catering option for large organizations like these, it was in my business's best interest to stop using expanded polystyrene. I ask you to vote yes and ban expanded polystyrene. Thank you.
Thank you. Mercedes Thompson and Dennis Gong.
Hello, my name is Dennis Gong.
And my name is Mercedes Thompson. And we are high school students at Poly.
And City.
We
and
are
youth leaders with Baltimore Beyond Plastic. We are also proud, lifelong residents of Baltimore City.
When we started this organization in 2016, we envisioned a Baltimore free of foam, a city where polystyrene is not burned in the Bresco incinerator, releasing chemicals to be inhaled by our developing lungs, a place where foam is not placed in landfills, leaching poisons into our waterways. Most of all, we imagined youth leaders across Baltimore taking a stand against this substance so pervasive in our communities. We wanted to show the world that we are not the leaders of tomorrow, but the leaders of today. As an organization, we have reached over 2,000 unique fellow city school students through events such as a rally in front of City Hall, a Styrofoam youth dinner, and a lobby day in Annapolis. Students across the city have consistently shown that we want, no demand, to see this bill passed.
I and other members of Baltimore Beyond Plastic have also presented on this issue at various community associations over the past weeks and have received overwhelming support for the bill. We have received letters of support from Patterson Park, Fells Point, Douglas District, Butchers Hill, Fells Prospect, Hamden Council, Highlandtown, St. Helena, and the Upper Fells Point Community Associations. For those associations that do not hold votes at general meetings, many attendees were enthusiastic about signing on to petitions individually, such as the 17 community members from the Greater Remington Association. Communities are disheartened about the volume of EPS litter in their streets and harbor and are looking forward to alternative products. Without a doubt, it is clear that community leaders support this bill and are excited to see their voices heard and listened to as the vote is decided on.
Foam lasts forever. Every piece that we see in our waterways or on the street will survive long after every one of us in this room is gone. But the decisions that we make can pave the way for a bright, beautiful Baltimore. We ask the City Council, what future do you want for our youth and our communities? Thank you.
Thank you. We did Nadia and Jasmine from, just want to make sure I don't miss anyone here. Give me 1 second, folks. Jasmine, we're number 11, yeah.
I think they were school year, actually. Have you met with those kids? Yeah, it's school year, but go for it. Yeah.
We did Trinity Rameau from Harlem Park Elementary. I think it was number 13. Councilman Schleifer.
Can I just ask a question to the, you guys mind stepping back up for a second? Thanks.
Yeah, I know. That was intentional. And federal prep was number 12.
First of all, thank you guys for coming in. It's great to see City and Poly standing together. It doesn't happen often, so it's certainly very encouraging to see all the students here. And so, as the youngest council person, I feel like I could relate to you guys more than some of the older folks here. But I do have some questions because I've been doing a lot of research on this bill. Obviously all of us have been hearing people on both sides. But one thing that was that somebody sent me last night actually made me think a little bit about this. And so we hear about businesses, some absorbing the cost, some not absorbing the cost, and each individual business is unique and they'll have to work on that individually. But then it comes down to the school system, right? So this past year, I think one of the biggest challenges we faced when we came into this council was the funding the funding shortage in the school system. And I'm sure a lot of people who are here today were also here, lobbying for the additional funds, and we still have a long ways to go in that. And so the sales guy, I don't know if he's still here, had mentioned the cost differential on what it costs between the styrofoam versus the alternatives. And I actually looked it up last night, and the cost is actually double between the styrofoam food trays and the new food trays that the Baltimore City school system is now serving on. And so I'm asking purely a financial question. As far as the school system is concerned, the increase that it's going to cost, it costs them double. And so we know that they spend roughly about $1 million a year on paper goods, and the food trays are the #1 thing that they're spending on. So when I looked at the school's budget, one of the things that frustrated me the most was that they were talking about cutting teachers out of classrooms. And so I got up and I said during that first hearing that that's the last thing we should be talking about, is cutting teachers out of classrooms, and I hope you guys agree with that. So with the additional cost for the school system just alone, I mean, what do we then look at? Because I know in my district there were certain schools that lost assistant principals, there's certain schools that lost art teachers, librarians. So what do I answer the person last night who emailed me saying, what is going to be cut next for my kid's school for yet an additional expense that they're going to bear? Which, granted, I mean, they already are going to be spending that because they already switched over. But how do we answer those people?
Well, we've seen schools in other counties. We've seen schools in other counties, such as Montgomery County, switch to alternative products, and it is only a 3-cent difference. It is double the cost, but we believe that the investment in our kids' health is worth it.
And I don't debate that one bit. You know, I have 2 children, so obviously the health of my children is a top priority for me. But strictly this year, next year, the year after that, the city school system is going to have an additional cost. So being that they're already strapped, what in the next years do we tell them should be cut in order to do this? And I'm sure there's plenty of things. I'm just asking you guys as students who see firsthand what your opinions are.
Can you give me 1 second? Councilman Bullock.
Councilman Schleifer, there is actually somebody from the school system who can speak to that.
Liz is here, if she wants to say
I mean,
something.
I'm more interested to know what the kids' priorities are than.
What the answer to the question, right?
Oh, no, I was asking what the kids would say from the school system, what their priorities would be, and what, as students, because you guys see firsthand.
So at our schools, personally, we have a lot of security there, and we're not sure it's entirely necessary, especially like armed police officers. We're not entirely sure that's necessary. And we also come to school not to just, constantly have like police officers surrounding us all the time. We come to school because, we think that we'll be safe there. And styrofoam, the styrofoam trays that we are currently being served on before they make the switch over, definitely don't make us feel safe, knowing that our school system, was serving us food ever since I was in elementary school all the way up until now. So it's a very personal issue for us, and we think that the cost difference, warrants the change. And I'd also like Liz to. So
we're going to go to.
Okay.
I'm going to wrap this specific dialogue up. We're going to go to city schools, and then one final comment from Councilman Schleifer. And we're going to go back to Councilman Bullock, and then Councilman Cohen. City schools.
Hello. I represent the Food and Nutrition Department, and we have 180 cafeterias throughout Baltimore City. On January 9th, we actually passed a contract for compostable trays in our cafeteria because we do support this, and that represents less than a 0.5% increase in our total expenses for the food service department. I would also like to point out that food service funds throughout the United States schools are funded separately and distinctly from the general fund, which does fund teachers and textbooks. So our dollars come from USDA to support this increase.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Schleifer? Good. Councilman Bullock? Good. Councilman Cohen?
Real quick, guys, one quick question for you. Are you both being paid to be here today?
No.
No. Okay, so you're students that are coming to engage in the democratic process. To my colleague's question, It's worth pointing out that the school board just recently voted to eliminate polystyrene from school lunches. When I was a teacher, we had styrofoam lunches, and one of the things we know is that the material leaches into food and has carcinogens that cause cancer and other toxic health elements for young people. And so I was really glad to hear the school board actually step up and eliminate polystyrene. And just to all the young people that are here today, you all are not paid lobbyists. You all are here of your own volition, and you all are doing exactly what a democracy demands of you, which is to speak out on behalf of your peers. And I'm just really heartened and encouraged by the campaign of Baltimore Beyond Plastic, all the work you've done, not just today, but leading up to this, rallying businesses, community groups, the school system. This is what the work of moving our city looks like, and so I thank you for your work today.
I've got a question in it. I've got a question and also a comment in response to Councilman Cohen's comment, but City Schools, can you provide this committee in writing what the cost differential is? You mentioned that it's 0.5% of the total budget. Off the top of your head, I imagine you know what the total budget for food services for the school system?
It's a little bit more than $48 million.
$48 million, okay, thank you. So we're looking at, what's that, $120,000?
It's about 250 of a total increase in our styrofoam tray cost, which is less than 2 cents per tray.
Oh yeah, 240, 250. Okay, thank you. And that's all funded out of federal USDA.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make a comment. I want to be clear. I'm very appreciative that you all are here and all the organizing work that went into this. But I also want to make the point so that it's not lost that because someone's paid to or has a financial interest in supporting or opposing a piece of legislation, that does not make their opinion any more or any less relevant than someone who is not paid to do it or does not have a financial interest. There are advocates on both sides of this issue who are being paid to be here, and that's fine, and that's part of the democratic process. And I want to make it clear that this council, and specifically this committee, welcomes all of that testimony, all of that input, and wants everyone, regardless of where they come from or what their interest is, to be a part of this process moving forward. So thank you. Next up, we have Callie Locklear Toll. Yeah, Zeke.
Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the committee and council, Kaylee Locklear Toll here on behalf of the Maryland Retailers Association, respectfully in opposition to this legislation. And I wanted to start by saying that we agree with protecting Marylanders from potentially harmful products, but there simply are not facts to support the proponents' arguments that polystyrene is harmful. If you conduct a thorough investigation of the literature or even Google the topic, there is not one piece of academically vetted research that supports their claims. Literally, the websites this information is coming from are sites like drfeelgood.com or well.com. In all the years I've been lobbying on this issue, I have never seen one of these supposed peer-reviewed academic studies. Proponents then point to studies about styrene, which is not the same chemical compound as polystyrene. It is important to understand that styrene is a chemical building block that is not chemically active in the long-chain polymer that forms polystyrene. I want to point out that if styrene, though, is truly the concern, it occurs naturally in many foods that we consume at much higher levels, such as coffee, meat, strawberries, or peaches. So if you're going to ban it, I would think that we need to start banning those products as well. And despite comments that have been made earlier, you will see many letters from business owners who do oppose this legislation, Meals on Wheels, and numerous groups, including hospitals. And I believe there's information in your packet, as similar products are flat out not cost neutral to businesses. And it's important to also point out that because many of these alternatives are not biodegradable and are not recyclable, they will go to landfill or incinerators, which increases costs to taxpayers and to the city. Finally, polystyrene can be recycled, and we can do something meaningful with this issue. And Councilman Bullock and many of you I've talked to about this. At no charge to localities, DART in 7 counties and EPS across the state have polystyrene drop-off locations at no charge. And as we've discussed previously, there is no reason that when the city negotiates waste management and recycling contracts, we cannot add polystyrene to the recycling program. This is a potentially new revenue stream for the city and would make it easier for consumers to recycle the product. So with that, I'll stop there, and I'm glad to take any questions.
Councilman Bullock.
Thank you for the testimony. Just one point. I know we spoke about this before, but just wanted to kind of give some of the figures. So about 80% of what's recycled polystyrene foam is the block foam and not necessarily the food containers?
We had talked about that before. I think it's less than 5% of the foam that's in the stream, or what's in the waste stream is actually foam.
Right, but what's being recycled for the most part tends to be the block foam.
I can't answer that. DART can answer that for you, though. Yeah.
Thank you. Colleagues, any other questions? Next up, we have Gabrielle. Thank you, Ms. Locklear. Next up, we have Gabrielle and Viviana from Mount Washington EMS. Gabrielle and Viviana from Mount Washington EMS. Ladies, how are you? If you could say your name and your grade.
My name is Gabrielle Johnson, and I'm in the 7th grade.
My name is Amaria Smith, and I'm in the 2nd grade.
I'm 13 years old, and the Green Club and I want to put an end to styrofoam because styrofoam is made from plastic polystyrene, which is based on building blocks called styrene monomers. The information I'm about to share with you is from a very reliable source. This article states that Americans throw away 25 billion styrofoam coffee cups every year and 2.5 million plastic beverage bottles every hour. In addition, Americans consume 400 billion cups of coffee per day, or the equivalent to 146 billion cups of coffee per year, which is basically saying that 146 billion styrofoam cups are being used, and that's a lot. This affects me because as I was walking by the Inner Harbor, I looked down at the water and saw a lot of styrofoam. That is really bad. Styrofoam doesn't break down over time at all. Another problem is city school children eating off of styrofoam plates. That is another thing we must eliminate. Lastly, youth are the future. Let's keep our future earth clean.
Hold her microphone so she can hold her paper. Thank you.
I'm Amari, and I'm in the 2nd grade, and I'm 7 years old. On our Earth, we help our Earth, and I'm in Energy Club, and we have found many things and litter, and Mother Nature has been sick, and Mother Earth, and we are here to take care of her. And Earth is getting sick, and we are here to take care, and that has been bad for our Earth.
Thank you, ladies. Great job. Next up, we have Mike Levy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members of subcommittee. My name is Mike Levy, and I'm with the Plastics Food Service Packaging Group, and we represent companies that make all kinds of plastics products, including food service. In the short amount of time that I'm here, I want to concentrate on health and safety and litter, but I also want to applaud the students for being here. I'm both a parent and science fair judge, but one of the things that our goal is to make sure all the information about our products are out there, positive and negative, and that's my role today. So very briefly, one of the speakers just talked about the health effects of styrene and polystyrene. I think this is really important. People confuse the fact that they feel that styrene is toxic and leaches out, and again, there is no other science that supports that. More importantly, the FDA, which approves all food contact, a certain amount of food migrates into the container, for 50 years have measured polystyrene in food products, and there's a 10,000-fold safety factor. But as the previous speaker said, styrene is a liquid that's used to make a raw material. Polystyrene is the product. It's inert. And probably most importantly, industry has to provide information about all of its products and food. These are what 5 health agencies, federal agencies that regulate food service have said about polystyrene. The actual people, the National Toxicology Program that rated styrene as a suspected carcinogen, Dr. Birnbaum said, let me put your mind at ease about polystyrene. The level of styrene and polystyrene is insignificant, hundreds of thousands of pounds. We see no problem with styrene as an issue in food service. The National Institutes of Health and Safety, and I provided all of this to you, said styrene shouldn't be confused with polystyrene foam. Styrene's a liquid. Polystyrene is plastic, and we don't believe people are at risk from this product. The American Cancer Society chief person said consumers don't need to worry about polystyrene cups. So again, Food and Drug Administration, I just wanted to make sure that people understand when I hear things about styrene as a toxic and our children are exposed in our nursing homes, nothing could be further from the truth. And again, look at the science on this, that it's a safe program. The other thing I want to talk about a little bit is about litter and biodegradability, because I think this is an important issue. We clearly don't want to see polystyrene foam or anything littered in the harbors or anything like that, and we go to great lengths to work with organizations and programs to prevent that. But what we find from around the country is that bans on products, including foam, don't solve the litter problem. And San Francisco is a great example. In 2006, they banned polystyrene foam takeout, just like we're talking about here, because they thought it would solve the litter problem. They did a before and after
Mr. Levy,
study.
I'm going to have to kindly ask if you could wrap up. You're about
Okay,
30
very
seconds
quickly.
past your time,
Bottom
sir.
line is that after they measured how much polystyrene foam was before and after, the amount of litter actually increased because the alternatives were heavier and they were littered as well. And then finally, to wrap it up, the Baltimore City Council here and the mayor's office, I think, understand that litter is a behavior problem. In 2013, we actually partnered with this organization here to find ways to reduce litter. And it was the mayor's office that in DPW that asked to kind of work out something. So we did a clean community competition, and neighborhoods were basically given awards. And we think that's the way to go. Banning the products is not the way to go.
Mr.
Going through
Levy,
other things. Okay.
Hang on one second. Folks, what school are you from? Rura. Is there someone here to testify from your school?
Okay, no.
Thank you. Is there someone that wanted to? One person? Okay. All right. So I'm gonna let you all work that out, but if there is someone that wants to come down and the rest of you would like to stay and watch, please send that person down right now and we will squeeze them in next. Mr. Levy, thank you. I think we had a question for you from Councilman Bullock.
Sure.
Not so much a question. I think it's more of a comment. It's related to something that you said was also said previously. So one of the things that was mentioned is around our DPW and having facilities. And I think it would be great to have somebody from DPW here. Unfortunately, we don't. But I do think there's some information from the Baltimore Baltimore County Solid Waste Management, because in their 2018 newsletter, they make a reference to polystyrene. I'll just read this really quickly, but I will say before I say that, thank you for the clarification. I think that's important, and I do agree with you. A lot of it has to do with behavior, so we can't, it's not an either or, it's a both and, so we have to make sure that we're doing the right thing, but also having the right products. Just a really quick excerpt. First, polystyrene is difficult to collect and process. It tends to break into smaller pieces due to its brittle construction and compaction in collection containers. At the county's materials recovery facility in Cockeysville, those small pieces would get into other recyclables, such as paper, contaminating the load, potentially lowering the value of the material. Secondly, polystyrene used to package foods and liquids runs the risk of contamination, making it too dirty for manufacturers to use to make new products. So, and again, they also make reference to the recent study done by the New York City Department of Sanitation. So, I mean, I think it's important that we talk about these issues. I do thank you for being here and making sure that we have the full picture.
Do you want a response? Or?
Oh, I mean, it's a comment, but I mean, you can respond. If
Yeah, no. Polystyrene, contaminated polystyrene actually can be recycled, just like the block that you referred to as far as in recycling. And as far as New York City Sanitation, we're actually working down there to have a program to recycle all of their polystyrene, not just the foam, because again, they're under diversions as well. But that's kind of where it is.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And I did want to note that Karen Stokes from the mayor's office did send me a message. So Baltimore DPW could not be here today. As many of you are aware, we are in the middle of legislative session in Annapolis, and they are currently down in Annapolis dealing with some important issues that affect DPW in the city of Baltimore. I know they would have liked to have been here. Karen, if we can try and get them here for any subsequent hearing on this, that would be greatly appreciated. And I apologize, we've been joined by Councilman Stokes from the 12th District, who's a member of the committee. Thank you, Councilman. Next up, we have Christopher Gerbez. Did I say that right, sir? Yes, you got it. Excellent.
Thank you, Chair. Introduce myself, Christopher Gerbis. I work with EK Lay Company. We're manufacturers representatives. I work with Bill Blystone, who presented earlier. I lived in Baltimore City for 25 years, currently a Baltimore County resident, also a graduate from Poly. So, but I'm here to give my perspective on the industry side. I've been doing this for about 10 years. I feel the ban will have a profound impact on business owners, forcing lower profit margins, or just basically they're going to have to eat the profit losses or pass them along to the customers. An example of a financial impact would be I know a restaurant location or a restaurant chain that has 5 locations. Each one uses about 5 cases of foam per week. That's 25 total cases. At $18 a case for the standard foam hinge containers, foam costs are about $23,000 a year. At $52 per case, which would be the next upgrade to a fiber-type container that Bill Blystone had pointed out earlier, those costs escalate to about $67,000 a year. That's an increase of about $44,000. Also, the next level would be a polypropylene-type container, which at $80 a case, pack 200, polypro options would cost about $104,000. That's an increase of about $80,000 to that restaurant concept. That's a small piece of the puzzle. I think there's other things that they would have to consider to ban, whether it's foam cups or other polystyrene products. I also know that the ban would have an impact on the school system. We've talked about that. I think that the financial impact is actually factual and easy to prove. The environmental impact is a little bit more difficult to analyze. Many experts feel that the environmental footprint is the best gauge to consider. I was out yesterday, actually drove in PG County. PG County has banned foam for over a year now. I pulled off on the side of the road, I collected a bag of trash. Most of the trash was glass bottles, cans, paper, cardboard, paper cups. I did find 1 foam hinge container. So again, as people have said, I think product bans do not reduce litter. I think that trash on the city streets has been a problem for decades. Some of us may remember in the 70s, Mayor William Donald Schaefer started the trash ball campaign. That went for about 2 decades. Was later, Mayor Kurt Schmoke started It's Your Baltimore, Don't Trash It. I think those initiatives created a lot of community awareness, and city residents were proud to show off their clean neighborhoods. In some cases, actually receiving financial rewards. So, thank
Thank you, Mr. Gerbs. I have to ask you to wrap up because you're about 30 seconds past.
Okay. In conclusion, I would say it's prudent that the city of Baltimore not rush to any bans. I think they should look at enhancing recycling awareness and also recycling infrastructure.
Thank you. Mr. Gerbs, we have a follow-up question for you, but if you could hang around for a minute. We have Milo Pere from Mount Washington School up next.
Okay.
Hey, can we ask him a question?
After.
Can you know, she could stand on that little stool and then
Can you tell us your name and what school?
I'm Tavian Cardwell, and we're representing Mount Washington School Green Committee in Baltimore, our city, Maryland, our state, United States, our country, and the world, our home. And so we want to share an optimistic look because the bill that you have before you represents a lot of hope to our youth. And I'm happy to share this optimistic hope with you.
What was your name again, sir?
Tavian Cardwell.
Tavian Cardwell?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And we have a very optimistic hope that's given them a vision for sharing our schools and with our kids in a place that is clean and green, where our food waste can be composted and resulting fresh soil for our seeds to be planted for our future. So our investment is pay off in more than just money. It's so much more in our future. And with that, I'd like you to hear from the source, Milo, on our vision of hope. Yeah. Microphone up.
So a world without polystyrene looks clean and fresh, with clean air and more animals with clean water. And we have a good potential for this. Life is better without styrofoam because you can have less pollution, so you can breathe better and have really good health. So you can walk and be alive and fresh.
What school do you go to?
Mount Washington Elementary.
What grade?
I'm in 3rd grade.
Thank you very much, Milo. Okay. We had Councilwoman Clark. You had a comment for Mr. Gerbs. Please use the microphone.
Yes, it was.
Please use the mic.
I wanted to say that there are all kinds of economics involved here. And by the way, you found only one styrofoam cup, although there was other litter. That's a different resolution. But so I think maybe it did have an effect. But what I want to say is that how much it costs, there are costs that aren't being considered here that all the taxpayers are paying for in Baltimore that have to do with non-recyclable materials. So it is important for us to learn about the cost to the private sector, but we all pay taxes, including the private sector, restaurants, but also hundreds of thousands of the rest of us. And we're paying for not being able to recycle and to handle this non-recyclable material. So I just been listening to, I think it's very valid to hear the cost differentials for restaurants. It's a concern. But there are two sides and balances to that cost. And everybody's paying the other side of the equation. So just trying to balance it out.
No. And
it's very, appreciate you being here. You were very, very thoughtful in your comments, but we haven't never talked today about what it's costing us as a city to have this non-recyclable material all over the place. It's not a debate.
Well, no, thank you. And let me also state that I am 100% for recyclability. I think it's very important. I have kids myself. I want to pass along, a clean earth to them as well. I think that we need to do a little bit of more education on getting the awareness. I think in the packaging industry, it's very robust right now. There are many, many different manufacturers coming out with new options that are replacing foam. I think if you were to ask most business owners, they want to do away with foam, even in Baltimore City. They really want to. I think many of them are already making that choice to do so. Right now, the delta between the packaging is very high.
Because it's not competitive yet, but it will be if we keep passing laws like this.
I think with efficiencies, it will be, yes.
And everybody buying, more people buying.
It could be.
I hope so.
Yes.
For you and for us.
And for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Burnett.
I got a question for him too.
Councilman Schleifer.
Well, the guy disappeared. I'm sorry, Miss. What company are you with?
Sorry, I'm with EK Lay Company. We're manufacturers representatives. We represent about 17 to 20 different manufacturers that create these products.
So you sell what type of products? Plastic also, and the whole.
Correct. We sell foam hinge containers up to the plastic, polypropylene, the fiber options, all those.
All right. So how do you? So there's again, looking at both sides of the aisle here, as somebody who is undecided as to, what the right answer and when is the right answer. One of the things that I'm thinking about is my own personal experiences when I go to a restaurant and I take something out in a carry-out container and quality-wise. And certainly it's a higher quality when you walk out with a plastic container that your stuff's not going to spill out of versus when you get your food in a foam container. So is that something from your experience that you've seen that businesses will say it's slightly more, but it's also a premium product? And so what I see is that quite often people are willing to pay a little bit more for something that is that much better. Has that been your experience as well?
Absolutely, yes. I've found that many businesses that I deal with, and I deal with many in the DC district, Montgomery County, PG County, they all want to use a better package. They don't like to use foam most of the time. However, there are many businesses that use it because it makes sense for them. But many do want to enhance that presentation. Earlier today, someone noted that the business is moving more from a sit-down to more of a carry-out industry. And it's not just easy just to change your packaging overnight. You have to really use something that works for whatever product you're serving, whether it's pasta or if it's just something that's maybe French fries. So it's not an easy change. I've seen a lot of business owners fumble over the last year or two with trying to make that change, and they've actually gone through 2 or 3 different options until they found something that suits them.
Sure. So, and I guess that's one of the questions also when we're talking about like a phase-in of such a plan. I mean, how long for industry standards would you say it takes to really perfect what that product looks like?
I would think that it would take a good 6 months to really be able to transition, and that's when you have maybe multiple units. A single operator could probably do so more quickly, but when you have a rollout with many different locations, you're going to want to do test samples first. You're going to make sure the product gets home in the way it should. And so I think a true rollout, I've seen by experience, takes about a good 6 months.
Gotcha. And just one last question to my colleague, Councilwoman Clark's point. So with buying power, if more people are switching over to these premium products, would that savings be done at like the distribution level, so even individual stores can benefit from that purchasing power, or is it the individual? Because I know you gave an example of a couple places that have larger quantities of orders, but what about the individual small businesses? Would they be able to benefit from the purchasing of their neighboring businesses?
Sure, I think you can drive the price down by having co-ops. I also think that the product is very, there's a ton of variations of the type of foam alternatives in the market now. Many of them come from overseas. So if you look at a true environmental footprint of a product, something that's made overseas in a sloppy process, it's high energy, high waste, then it's thrown in a container to make its way over to the States. Then we have to transport, whereas say a foam hinge container is made with very little energy, and it's made right in Pennsylvania, New York, and shipped right down here. So I think if you looked at the overall footprint, that you would find that that polystyrene foam is probably better than a lot of those alternatives. And I guess to get back to your question is, those imports are certainly driving down the pricing. It's very difficult to make a fiber container domestically to be efficient. So really, yes, you can drive the price down, but you're bringing it in from a larger environmental footprint.
Gotcha.
Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think there's been a lot of conversation about the costs to small business owners, which I think, and I'm thankful for the business owners who've raised that issue, because it's something that when we talk about the economy of Baltimore City, local, small businesses hire local, they create jobs and really support Baltimore City. So I think it's an important consideration. The other piece, though, and I just really wanted to second my colleague Councilman Clark's point, is that there are also other costs that we have to consider that also impact business, right? So when we talk about healthcare costs associated with carcinogens and cancer, that translates into a cost. When we talk about the impact on the environment and climate change, especially when we talk about businesses that are located along the waterfront in Fells Point and Federal Hill, as water levels rise, and I'm not trying to make a comparison to styrofoam containers to water levels, but when we talk about the overall environmental impact of these sort of practices, these are realities that will have an impact on your small businesses, on the economy of Baltimore City. So we have to be very forward thinking when we look at these things, because these do vary costs. When we talk about the cost to the city and cleanup, or the cost of time of volunteers, I've heard a lot that we should change behavior, and I absolutely agree. Right in my trunk right now, I have some trash-free Maryland gloves and large-sized recyclable bags for community cleanups. And I've offered to any neighborhood leader, any community leader, any resident in my district, if you want to lead a cleanup, not only will you get your councilman with you to pick up the trash personally, but I will supply everything you need to make it done, because I absolutely agree. It's a behavior change that needs to exist. I think that we have to push in the city, and I think a lot of us have really taken the lead. I'm not the only person on this council that's done cleanups, but I agree that changing that behavior has to be at the forefront. But we also have to walk and chew gum at the same time. And I would offer, to any of these businesses to come join me on a community cleanup. I think it would be great promotion for your business to show that you are giving back. So I'd make that offer to the retail association members or any other member of a business association, that if you want to also help promote your business and show that you're giving back, you can join me in picking up some trash. I would also offer, I see Blue Water Baltimore still here. I had a very enlightening experience with the water keepers and going out into the harbor on their boat and seeing the tireless work they do to keep our environment clean and our harbor safe, which has an environmental impact, right? When we talk about the seafood industry, I mean, Baltimore's known for our crab cakes and for our crabs and our fish. If they're unhealthy due to carcinogens and consuming styrofoam, that has an impact on your business that in tourism into Baltimore. So I think we have to look at the full picture. We have to look at how we can support business, and I think this is actually a great way to support businesses. I'm happy to work on any marketing, and will personally attest to the fact that I try to only eat in Baltimore City, only eat in small Baltimore restaurants. But also, I can tell you it would be very appealing if I walked in and there was a sign saying, "Hey, we have alternative products. We care about the city." I would definitely spend my dollars there. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We're going to move on to, we're going to take a 5-minute recess. We will be back in 5 minutes to reconvene, and we will start with Paul Poe from DART Corporation when we get back. Thank you. Paul?
That's me.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman Costello. And
full name and organization, please.
My name's Paul Poe. I'm with DART Container Corporation, and I appreciate the time to be able to speak today. DART Container is a manufacturer of food service products. We make foam, plastic, paper, and recyclable and compostable materials, over 2,000, depending on the time of the year. We have 45 facilities around the world, and 3 of those 45 are in Maryland. We have a manufacturing facility in Federalsburg, and we have distribution facilities in both Havre de Grace, that's our latest, and then Hampstead as well. So DART is a good corporate citizen of the state, and we do make foam. And we are dedicated to the proposition that foam is recyclable. We work with 7 counties out of the 24 in the state to recycle foam, and we also do it in Baltimore City at the Sisson Street plant. And I want to just counter any questions that have been raised about the recyclability of foam, because it is done, it's capable of being done, and we do it. We have done recycling of foam since 1990, nearly 30 years ago. And we've been making foam for nearly 60 years. We kind of invented the foam cup, and it is very important to our business and very important to businesses that want to stay and use our products. There's never been, contrary to anything you've heard from the proponents of this bill, there's never been one reported case in over 60 years of any health-related issue. And that's not glossing it over, it is just the facts. And also in my testimony, you will see, I've attached nearly 100 letters that my counterparts back here have taken to provide the City Council from businesses in Baltimore City that use foam. And they are against the bill, and there are nearly 100 of those. And we fully appreciate, and I laud the school kids that were here today for taking a civic interest, but there are a couple things that they've stated that aren't quite right. And I'm not going to get into the depth of my testimony today, but I want to say that foam is recyclable. We've done it in Baltimore City at the Sisson Street plant with DPW for years. We backhaul it to our plant in Leola, Pennsylvania, and recycle it. There are a few other issues.
Paul, I'm going to have to kindly ask you to wrap up because you're about 45 seconds past.
Okay. Well, I'm happy to leave it there. I would say that the fine here in this bill is $1,000 for the first time, when in Montgomery County it's a written warning. So, and you don't ban food service for the homeless shelters and folks that most at need. And if this is a health issue, why would you let it be used for the folks at most risk? So I think there are structural issues at question, and I'm happy to answer anything to follow up. You have my written testimony and over 100 letters from businesses in Baltimore that are against the bill, primarily from Lexington Market.
Councilman Bullock?
Yes, thank you for your testimony. Just one quick comment and a question. So the last thing you mentioned about some of the more vulnerable populations, I think that was a point that was made earlier, so that's a point well taken, and maybe we should be expanding our limitations on styrofoam. The other piece that you mentioned was around recycling at Sisson Street, so I'm curious as to what percentage of the foam being recycled at Sisson Street is actually food packaging?
That's a good question, and at DART, we only make food packaging products. But as a benefit to the city of Baltimore at Sisson Street, we take back any foam that's produced. So it's block foam, or if you get a TV or a computer, we take that back. If you get a food cup, and someone testified earlier that we wouldn't take food service products back, we do. We have a clean and wash plant in Leola where any food service is sent through our rinser and chopped up and recycled. And something that needs to also be said as to recyclability, a plastic hot cup or a hot paper cup for a hot service like Starbucks cups are 20% plastic. They're 10% polyethylene. So in order to recycle any of those cups, and we make those cups as well, I'm not here to degrade any substrate, but any product that is polylined has to be boiled, the plastic ripped off, and then and only then can the paper be recycled. Baltimore does not do that. Baltimore does not have a composting facility. If you ban foam, you're going to get a higher cost product that will be a higher charge to the restaurants or passed on to customers, and then the city will have to deal with that at the end of life. I didn't have time to go into life cycle analysis. It's in my notes. But when you have a paper cup, it's 2.5 times the weight of a foam cup going into a landfill. And as someone noted earlier, anything that goes into a landfill, it's anaerobic these days. It's hermetically sealed. There's no oxygen getting in there. So whether foam is not biodegradable or a cup or a newspaper, none of that's going to decompose because there's no oxygen in modern landfills.
Just a quick follow-up. So I do appreciate the mention of composting and facilities. That's something that the city should be investing in and thinking about for the future. But then back to your point, I appreciate you taking additional products over Assistant Street. But back to the percentage, just trying to get a clarification. How much of that is actually food service that winds up being rinsed and then recycled?
I can get you numbers by weight. We don't break it out. We just weigh the things when they come in. So I have volumes, especially since we don't make them. And I will be happy to share those with you by the weight, and it's consistently increased over the years. And it's important to note that this agreement we have with the city of Baltimore and 7 other counties in the state of Maryland is that we're taking all this product off your hands that you would either have to landfill or pay for its end-of-life composition. And I know we had a phone call a couple of weeks ago. I was snowed in New Hampshire. But what we provide to the city of Baltimore saves them money. If our products are banned, there's no business reason for us to continue that recycling effort because we won't feel comfortable in the city of Baltimore anymore. If you ban our products, that's your decision, and that's a thoughtful process that you can go through. But right now, we're taking product out of your waste stream, which is about 2% of this total solid waste stream, and only about 1/3 of that 2% is food service. And the most of the stuff that we take back are the block foam. And that's not a threat. That's nothing other than if we can't sell our products here, we need to reevaluate why we're providing the city of Baltimore this service.
And I understand that. But again, I think when we're talking about food service, if the majority of what you're recycling happens to be block foam, that's a different issue more so than the food service that we're talking about, food service products.
It could be, and I will look into that, and I promise I'll get you those numbers. But be clear that if Baltimore bans food service products, which this bill does, you're going to be handling the end-of-life disposal of all that block foam that we currently handle for you now. That's all. That's it.
Just so I understand, you mentioned that food service waste, the number 6 stuff, that accounts for approximately 2% of what your...
No, the total municipal solid waste stream from every city in America, when you line them up, expanded polystyrene is about 1.5 to a max of 2% of the municipal solid waste stream. And what we take
That's
back...
all of solid waste?
Of all of solid waste, yes.
Okay. And you are, how much, what, so let's say we have... for the sake of conversation, we have, let's call it 1,000 units of solid waste that we deal with in the city, let's say on a daily basis. Of that, let's say 2% of that is the stuff that we're talking about today.
So 200 units of your 1,000?
No, 20. 2% of
20. So
yeah.
2,000. Okay.
So of those 20 units, what percentage of the 20 units, or what number of the 20 units are you all recycling through what you just discussed?
I told the council member that I have volume numbers. We weigh it by weight, not by product. And we do this at the Sisson Street, and we have it's operated by the city. On their property, we operate it, but we take and pick up and backhaul it to recycle. And I don't know that I have numbers for food waste or food service products versus all the other polystyrene in the solid waste stream, but I can get you the numbers.
Do you have an idea of what the total tonnage is?
I can get those to you. I don't. I have been
It's okay
sent
if you
those,
don't know.
but I don't have them right now.
It's okay.
Off the top of my head.
So, does Dart manufacture some of the other stuff that we talked about, like the block foam
No.
and the peanuts in the packages?
Only food service products. And like I stated, we make between 2,000 and 3,000 different products depending on the time of the year. And their foam, the red Solo cups, you had someone testify earlier wanting to get rid of all number 6 plastics and they're rigid. That would include Solo cups, you know, because a red Solo cup and a foam cup you get at Dunkin' is all polystyrene, and they were promoting that they would be banned.
Got it. So, pardon me, I just wanted to finish this
Sure.
train of thought. So, the other stuff that you're recycling, like the block foam and the foam peanuts that come in, you know, Amazon packages, et cetera.
We don't do peanuts. They tend to be covered in a flame retardant, and so they can't go into the recycling stream typically. But
Okay, let's just block foam.
Okay.
When you all recycle that, is there a waste byproduct of that is used to manufacture subsequent new product that you all manufacture?
That's a good question. And what we do when food is attached to a foam, like a clamshell or something like that, we rinse and wash, and that water is recycled and reused. And if you compare that to a pizza box with, you know, oil that's on the bottom of that pizza box and the paper, that's not recyclable because that oil will contaminate the entire cycling stream. But our food products are washed and rinsed and then chopped up and recycled.
Maybe I asked the question the wrong way. I'm sorry if I did.
No, it's okay. I may have misinterpreted. I'm sorry.
So when you got you next. So when you recycle this, I'm just referring to it as stuff, and that includes food waste or food containers, and that includes block foam.
It does.
There's a waste byproduct as a result of that, correct?
Are you talking about the food service products that are the stuff that's washed off the foam as we clean the foam?
I'm talking about all of it.
That goes into the water, and it's recycled, filtered, and the water's reused. So as far as food goes, it depends on the amount of residue, and so that will go into a wash and dry system, and then whatever's contaminated will be washed off, and then the polystyrene, the foam polystyrene, will be chopped up and recycled. The water will be refiltered and then reused.
Right. I'm interested in the end of that process. So when stuff's chopped up and recycled, there's a yes or no. Is there a waste byproduct?
No.
What is the product? It's melted.
It goes through a system where it's chopped up into bits. It's then melted and put through an extruder. It comes out like spaghetti, and it's cut off in intervals, and then those products, those strands, get chopped up into beads, and that bead will go back into new products.
That's perfect.
And those food and that will not go back into food service, by the way.
Just bear with me. So
sure.
You work with DPW at Sisson Street.
Correct.
You recycle these products.
We do.
And there is a waste byproduct, which is that little process from the big piece of block foam down to the spaghetti, down into the little beads. And then you take those beads and you reuse them to create new product.
We sell those to independent third-party users.
So you're making a profit in some respect off of the waste byproduct. So
it's a losing proposition for us economically. What we're doing with the state of Maryland and Baltimore City is taking this out of their waste stream, but what we recover is less than what we gain when we sell the beads. So if we are banned in Maryland or Baltimore City, the city's going to have to pick up the cost to get rid of that stuff. What we do right now is...
So that's what I'm trying to understand. So what's your profit loss margin?
I can get you those numbers. That's not my department, but yeah.
Yeah, I want to be... I just want to clarify exactly what I'm asking for.
Sure.
I'm trying to understand what it costs for you to operate that recycling operation. And then I'm trying to understand what you're making out of that, because there's some level. And
We're not making any money.
No, I'm sure that you're losing money off of it, but I'm trying to understand what the cost profit margin is here. So it costs you money to run this operation. You bring in some level of revenue from the waste byproduct that you've been able to break down / create from these original products. And then that waste byproduct is either sold or can be used in the creation of new product that
Yes.
is made with some recyclable material in some capacity. What percentage of that is, I don't know, but what I'm concerned, let me go to what I'm concerned about.
Sure.
So an assertion has been made that if this is banned, then you will pull out of the city with your operation.
It could be. It'll be a business decision.
Yeah, let me,
Absolutely, it could be.
I'm sorry, let me restate that. There has been an assertion made that if this product is banned in the city, then your company will have to explore whether or not to continue your operation in the city. Is that a fair statement?
That is fair. And if we're not welcome in the city with the products that we make in food service, why would we continue to pay the bill for Baltimore City to take this off their hands?
I don't blame you.
Yeah, I mean, it's a business decision. It's not a threat. It's just something that will be evaluated.
I'm not taking it as a threat. I understand that it's a business decision, and quite frankly, I don't blame you. And if I were in your shoes right now facing this legislation, I would be inclined to explore exactly what you're discussing. What I think would be helpful to the committee is to understand what the economic realities are of what you're saying, to get some type of idea before we're ready to move forward with the bill, is to better understand exactly what you're talking about.
Sure.
And how much money this operation costs, and what type of revenue is brought in as a result of the operation, as well as what percentage of the waste byproduct is used to create new product for you versus what percentage is resold to other manufacturers that may be operating in Baltimore or in Maryland or nationally. So
Yes.
if
No,
you could
I
provide us-
agree, and I can follow up with you on that.
Thank you. Councilman Bullock.
No, Chairman Costello, that was exactly where I was going, so I appreciate you asking those questions. Honestly, just wanted to get some of those facts, some of those figures, some of those numbers. Again, not conjecture, but
Sure.
again, getting down to what those statistics
I
really
can
are.
get you the poundage numbers that we recover at Sisson Street that's taken out of Baltimore City's stream of waste, municipal solid waste. Those numbers I can get you easily. There won't be because we weigh them. They're in a bin when we pick them up. We weigh the gross weight instead of breaking them out by product type. But I can get you those numbers for what we take out of the city of Baltimore's municipal solid waste stream that the city doesn't have to pay for to get rid of. I can do that.
So I got another question. I don't know if this is for you or maybe this is a Blue Water Baltimore question, but if you could help me understand. So on one hand, you have these products that are waste products that are delivered to Sisson Street, and it's all in one neat pile, and you're able to manage through that. On the other hand, we have product that ends up on the ground or in the harbor. And the perfect example that comes to mind is what the water wheel collects, or the water wheel, right? Trash wheel, Mr. Trash Wheel, and
The second one, too.
his wife, Professor Trash Wheel. That's right. They're not married. My apologies. Kind of.
But there are two of them, right? Yeah.
Jump the gun there. So anyway, so the trash wheels collect,
Whatever's floating.
Yeah, whatever's floating in the water, and it's probably a significant amount of tonnage throughout the year. My question is, what are we doing with the trash that trash wheels are collecting, especially this specific product, and are we getting that product up to Sisson Street, or how are we dealing with that? Is there, Adam, is that?
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer to it, but I would hope that the water wheel folks would take it to Sisson Street. That would be optimal. I mean, for recycling and cleaning up whatever litter there may be. You know, all the other stuff sinks to the bottom of the harbor and you don't see it. Foam is 95% air, so it's going to float and it may be more visible. But if the folks at the water wheel bring it to Sisson Street, that would be incredible.
Adam, can you, so we have someone who represents the water wheels?
Okay, in answer to that question, so the trash wheel, what the trash wheel collects, there is not a process in the city for sorting out the different types of trash that are being collected by the trash wheel, in addition to the organic material, the logs and the leaves that come down the Jones Falls. So,
in other words, landfill.
Right.
Got it. Okay. Thank you very much. I look forward to your response.
I will follow up with those numbers. And
Thank you.
Again, if I did provide testimony. And one of the things I didn't really go into, attached to my testimony, and you had a question for Melvin earlier about restaurants and whether he was representing all the folks that in Baltimore restaurants. He doesn't. He's got a bigger clientele, tablecloth and fine dining. What we do at DART is we provide services to Lexington Market, the Korean delis, and folks like that. And attached to my testimony, you're going to find 100 letters from Baltimore City businesses that oppose this bill. And they're in there, and we have names of the contact person, the name of the business. So they tend to not be able to leave at 10 o'clock on a weekday because they're running their business. But we reached out to them, and the folks that I work with at DART are here that gathered these letters. But don't be confused that businesses in Baltimore don't consider this a challenge to operating a small mom and pop business in the city.
So I'm certainly concerned about that because I happen to represent Lexington Market. That's in my district. I don't have a copy of
The DART?
the DART.
Yeah, here it is. Here, you can have mine. I mean,
Yeah,
'cause I'll get another one.
I did it back and front so it'd be
All good.
environmentally.
Can you get me this
conscious, but-
electronically as well, please?
I will do that.
Thank
yeah.
you very much. And Councilwoman Clark?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I apologize.
No problem.
That I wasn't here for the beginning of your testimony, and you may have covered this. But I'm just trying to figure out, I'd like to pick up on what the chairman said just for a minute to ask you a couple things. So basically, somehow there are styrofoam containers that get to Sisson Street.
Yes.
How do they?
It's citizen-driven. We have it's a drop-off location.
It's a drop-off that people go in there with their styrofoam.
Yes, and we have talked to the city as well over the last year or two. What they had the solid waste contract come up with Waste Management, or whatever the name is of the person that collects waste in Baltimore City.
For the city?
Yes.
It's called the city.
No, you have a third-party contract where someone else actually does the physical work and picks stuff up. So you have green bins and blue bins, right? And we approached the city before the last mayor to discuss adding to that contract that the city undertakes with the collection people to include foam in the recycling bin. And this goes back to a question that was raised earlier. DART doesn't make money off taking foam back.
I understood. I heard that, what you said. So the city of Baltimore has a contract.
Yes.
That you are now part of. No.
We are not part of.
You're benefiting from.
Can you please talk into the mic, Councilwoman, please? Sorry. Just want to make sure.
No.
All right, so people come in and put the styrofoam in a bin at Sisson Street.
Individually. There's no citywide program.
And then who picks it up?
From Sisson Street, we take it back to our plant in Leola, Pennsylvania, where it's cleaned and chopped up and recycled.
All those shreds.
Yes.
That you're talking about. So you take it out of here.
Yes, at no cost to the city.
Okay. But when you're done with it, it still hasn't, I mean, this is an eternal, I wouldn't say infinite, but eternal product. It never really goes away. You can get it down to shreds.
Yeah, that's not an unfair statement, yes.
And so what the city, I was just trying to find out whether really you were recycling it through our recycling program.
No.
Well, okay, because that way, in better times, we'd be making money on it.
And that's an excellent point. And I've tried to make this.
In better times.
No, but recovered polystyrene is the highest valued recoverable commodity of foam, aluminum, glass, or paper. You can make more money per pound with recovered polystyrene. And right now, Baltimore doesn't make anything off this because DART does it, and we're doing it at a loss and taking it back. But Baltimore could do it if they wanted to.
But the markets are not.
I would challenge you to check the prices,
I
and
just wanted to make sure we weren't doing it.
you're not, and you could, and make money.
Well, but we don't even want to have the product to worry about, although, you know, getting it down to zero is going to be very difficult, but.
Yeah, the governor's zero waste program, you know, you're either going to have to eliminate a lot of things out of the waste stream,
Yeah.
or you're going to have to recycle or compost them. And right now, if Baltimore bans this, they're not able to compost or recycle the more expensive products.
Councilman Burnett.
I just more of a comment. I do appreciate these packets. We could definitely help the environment if there weren't so many duplicates of the same businesses to make it look bigger.
There was no intent. I mean, I got the letters and PDFs from our folks,
We'll be
and
sure
I
to
made
recycle
copies back and front, so there wasn't a waste of paper on many of them. But there are about 100 businesses in Baltimore City that are concerned about this that couldn't be here today, and I just wanted to give them a voice. And
I don't doubt it. I was just saying we could save a lot of paper without having the same people represented in these very large packets. It takes a lot of
I don't know how many are duplicated. I may have put a PDF in there more than once, but
definitely a couple.
okay, yeah. I mean, and I'm not denying that that may have happened, but I made the copies this morning over at Capitol Street copying, so.
A lot of paper. Yeah. Thank you.
Councilman Bullock.
Yes, just one other point to clarify. But one of the points you made before is we're talking about 1 to 2% of the total solid waste stream. But then, given that polystyrene is actually is lighter, what does that actually mean in terms of the total volume in the solid waste stream?
No, that's a good question. And you know, if you compare a foam cup to a paper cup, the paper cup is 2.5 times more by weight than the polystyrene cup. So it's going to cost the city more to dispose of a paper cup that it's not recycling because of the weight that goes into the tipping fees. As far as foam, on volume, they both take up about the same volume in a landfill. And again, it's important to note that landfills in today's day and age, EPA regulations require them to be hermetically sealed. There is no oxygen getting into a landfill, so regardless of whether it's biodegradable or degradable.
Can you hang on 1 second?
Yes,
folks.
sir.
What school are you from? One at a time. Rockville Heights. Thank you. Is there someone from your school that was planning on testifying? There's not? Thank you. Have a good day, and thanks for coming. Oh, there is?
There's some kids.
Oh, hang on, folks. Different school. Never mind, I'm sorry.
My job's hard enough. Following school kids, that's a tough lift. But you know, I applaud them all for being here and taking an interest in civics and how government works. But I just wanted to put our case forward for them to hear as well, and hopefully they'll learn that there are two sides to every argument. So,
absolutely, thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
And if there are any questions, please let me know, and I'll follow up with those numbers to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up is Steve Chu. Okay. Oh, which of those guys?
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Chu. I'm the chef and owner of Ekiben, which is like a little restaurant located in Fells Point. We started off as a hot dog cart and then worked our way up to a restaurant. So we're like your food truck to brick and mortar restaurant success story. Our restaurant only has like 8 seats. So ever since our inception, we've relied really heavily on eco-friendly carryout containers. And we go through a lot of them because we need that volume. Our restaurant is not very expensive, so we go through like 300 to 800 carryout containers a day. All our containers are made out of 100% recyclable material. All our bags are recyclable. All plastics that we use, they're all recyclable. But many small businesses can never escape from polystyrene because how cheap and easily accessible it is to us. Like you go in a corner store, you go to like Safeway, 7-Eleven, like the styrofoam's everywhere. Now imagine what it's like to be a business owner and go to like our vendors and see how much styrofoam is like in those shops. Like you walk in, just be aisles and aisles of that stuff. So a ban would leave many of these styrofoam, they would leave many empty shelves in these stores. And they would force our vendors to act and find new alternatives for these products. I don't see the ban as something that will hurt my business, but it's actually gonna be used as a tool to improve the community business as a whole and allow us to be more eco-friendly and to be better stewards of the city.
Thank you. Councilman Bullock?
Just thank you for your testimony. I just want to know, how would you characterize your business? Is business going well? Have you talked to others who may be trying to make this kind of switch? I mean, how is it working out for you?
I'm living the dream, man. Like, my business is great. Can't complain.
Did you just say living the dream?
Yes, I am. Yes, I did. Baltimore City, baby.
Not the only person that says that. Councilman Cohen.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you coming to testify. So again, just real quick, you feel as a small business owner, actually as a restaurant owner who is doing very well in Baltimore, that this would not harm business?
The marketplace would adapt. The marketplace always adapts. Like, if you take something on the marketplace, people have to find alternatives that are cost effective, and naturally the markets just balance out.
Great. Just for the record, this is a small business restaurant owner who is, quote, living the dream, whose business has done extremely well, who hires young people from our communities, who is eco-conscious, and who is not being harmed financially. We know that small businesses in Baltimore have challenges. Many of us on this council fight very hard for our small business owners. We fought to get a business improvement district in Fells Point. We worked with Mr. Chu, but just to say very clearly that this is a business that is doing the right thing by our young people, doing the right thing by our environment, and that is thriving financially.
What's your name?
My name is Saquani Roshane. I'm from Cross Country Elementary Middle School.
Cross country. Okay, so can you, not yet, please come up here. Got to get you signed in, but we'll get you next. Carolyn Boitnott. Bless you, God bless you. Carolyn Boitnott. Hi, Carolyn. Okay.
Good afternoon, Councilman Costello and members of the committee. My name is Leanna Wetmore, and I've been asked to read Ms. Boitnott's testimony on behalf of Commodore John Rogers Elementary Middle School's Green Team. We represent Commodore John Rogers, and we want to urge you to pass Bill 17-117, banning the use of polystyrene products for food service in Baltimore City. As you know, our school system uses these products. We at Commodore have tried to recycle our lunch trays at Sisson Street for the past several years. While that is better than having them go to the landfill, it takes our volunteers at least 3 man-hours daily to prepare those 800 trays for recycling. We are told that they need to be clean to arrive at Sisson Street. That time could be much better used assisting students with reading and math. There's about 8,000 pounds of recycled foam that leaves Sisson Street out of the 52 million pounds of recycling that Baltimore recycles annually. Even if all schools had the manpower to do this, other health and environmental issues dictate that we should stop using the product in this way. We hope that Baltimore City will join other cities and counties that have already banned this product. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Next up, William Rogers. Something? I'm sorry, I can't.
Commodore?
Nope.
Commodore William Rogers?
Nope. William Rogers Avens? Or Owens?
Hello. Hello, my name is William Rogers Owens. I'm associate of the Green Team at the Academy for College and Career Exploration. I am also an unofficial member of the Be More Beyond Plastic, which it sucks to not be on it, isn't it? It sucks to not be on there, but it's okay. We'll deal with it later. I'm an advocate for my school and for the Green Team at my school. I'm an 11th grade junior. I feel that it is an environmental issue that we deal with, styrofoam and things of that nature. It's good that in the 2018 and 2019 school year for Baltimore City Schools that we are going to switch from styrofoam and other forms of foam in our school system. So that's good. And I feel that foam is really bad for the environment. We all know that it's bad, and for the opposition, there is no say about the harsh cruelties that happen to our animals, to our environment. I wish the EPA was more on board on this, but I don't feel that way, that they're on board with it the way that they should be. And that's basically how I feel about that.
Thank you very much, sir. Next up, the young ladies from cross country. Tanisha and
Saklani. It's Saklani.
Oh.
So
Can you say your names? I'm sorry.
Saklani.
Okay, and
So I'll be speaking first and then she'll go. So it can be in a more organized fashion.
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So I attend Cross Country Elementary Middle School, and I'm a part of the Green Team, and we learn in class about the negative effects of styrofoam. So I'm for the ban. I think that we as like a people, we should be able to get a solution in order to make the environment better, because styrofoam products can be replaced, but our environment and our world can't. So we should start as a people and as a nation, not only in Baltimore City, but let's start here and start being effective and brainstorming and having ideas on how to make the environment better. And styrofoam, getting rid of it is one way. And for the businesses that came and spoke, I was listening. And do you prefer having styrofoam and making a profit, or your business being short-lived because you no longer have an environment for your business to be in? Instead of looking at the smaller picture and the dollar and cents, look at your environment and where you have to live. You're affecting wildlife, the humans, and you're ruining your ecosystem just to make a profit. And sometimes it's not all about money, because at the end of the day, even though you have all the money, you won't have anywhere to live and you won't have an environment to strive in. And neither will your children or further generations if we continue like this and only think of materialistic things.
My name is Tanisha Taylor. I'm from Cross Country Elementary Middle School, and I'm part of the STEM
team and green team, and we learned that with the styrofoam and plastic bags and stuff like that, when you throw them away, or you put them in the ocean, or you pollute the area, and also it affects us because when we go to school and we eat off of styrofoam trays, it has a lot of harmful effects because the chemicals inside the styrofoam could leak into our food, and that could like cause headaches, respiratory, and like lungs and stuff. So we shouldn't have that inside of our food or our schools because that's bad for us, and you don't want your children to be in that. And please remember the wider picture, the environment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Karina Mendel.
Good afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen of the council, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'll just be brief. I wanted to provide some anecdotal stories from local, national, and international opinions. So I was an alumni and graduate of St. Mary's College of Maryland, and in 2009, they started a program to promote reusable to-go boxes. So not only did we reduce styrofoam and paper, but you could return your lunch boxes and they would be washed. And as a cumulative effect of this, reducing trays and allowing reusable lunch trays to be returned and rewashed, they reduced their food waste by 23%. So this had an immediate impact on our small local college economy, as well as our economic and environmental footprint. The other piece I'd like to offer is that Larry Fink, who, if you might be aware, is the head of BlackRock on Wall Street, just recently announced last week that he will be doubling the team that focuses on social impact investing. So this speaks to a global trend in change of conscientious and sustainable development and investing. So I hope that we would be part of this movement. Lastly, I'd like to offer that King Abdullah, who is the king of Saudi Arabia, last week as well, said at the World Economic Forum that he will be investing in a $100 billion port city off of the Red Sea that will be completely off the grid, an eco-green city. So this is something that I think could offer global trade to thinking of Baltimore as a port city internationally, and not just the small and local business impacts that we have here in the city, which we've heard from both sides of. So with that, I'd thank you for hearing me speak, and thank you very much. I hope that you vote to reduce foam in the city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Amaria Smith from Mount Washington.
I think she just spoke.
I believe we also heard from Tavion Cardwell already from Mount Washington. Is that correct? Please bear with me for 1 second. I don't have them on here, but oh well. Sarah Maled from Mount Washington. Okay, entire school's gone. Okay. Is there? Gotcha. So I just want to make sure these are all closed out. Melissa Thompson.
Hello, Council. My name is Melissa Thompson. I'm a STEM science teacher over at Arlington Elementary Middle School, and I brought my green team here today. We really want you to pass this bill. I did a little work with Styrofoam for the past couple of years, and we've looked at some alternatives. For my school, we looked at an average of washable trays, which average price from $6 to $7 a piece. We did the math, and on average, my school spends roughly $192,000 on trays a year. This goes, in fact, in a direction that 1 tray per student with an average school body of 450 kids. And that doesn't count that some of our staff at the cafeteria level are trained to cover up trays when they need to be passed to students that miss lunch. So in order for them to get lunch, they have a tray at the bottom and a tray at the top. We've collected these trays. We've reused them for purposes in the classroom, projects to hold things, glue, other materials to build engineering projects, to try to get rid of the majority of them, but roughly 10% is all we can recover. Most of them go out of the building, which we're told are being recycled, but from what I know and understand, most of them are being burned and they're being released into our air quality system. The alternative we've looked at is an industrial washer for our school, which runs from $5,000 to $8,000. Now, we are a 21st century school, so we're looking to see what that can entail for us. And the average water cost, we're still going to look at calculating and how much trays, washable trays we can use, and to see what our margin would be and the difference between an average 162,000 trays a year to get rid of that cost of $192,780 and reduce it down to $8,000 a year with reusable trays. So that's our number game for you because we're working on our math skills, and thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. So that is everyone who is signed up to testify. Is there anyone else here who has not testified that wishes to testify? Anyone? Okay. We're not going to take a vote today. We are going to schedule a work session for Tuesday, February 13th at 10:05 a.m. At that time, the council will entertain, or this committee will entertain any proposed amendments to the legislation. I know that we have a few agency amendments. We will also accept any amendment from any member of the public that is interested in submitting one. That does not mean that we will vote on that amendment or formally consider it, but we will send out to everyone on the committee a list of all those proposed amendments. And then in order for an amendment to move, a member of the committee will have to make a motion. The amendment will have to be seconded in order to be voted on. And then we will vote on that amendment, that specific amendment. We will go through each amendment incrementally. Once that is completed, we will vote on the bill as amended, if applicable, and then we'll go from there. If you have proposed amendments, I would ask that you send those to me via email at eric.costello, COSTELLO, at baltimorecity.gov, and that you would also CC 3 other people at the same domain name, John, JOHN.BULLOCK. That's Councilman Bullock. So there's a fire alarm. I guess we have to leave.
Fortunately, we have a lot of people who know how to.
Please email any proposed amendments. Please check under your desk. If you are missing a key, a silver key with a pink colored hook on it, please let me know. Thank you for coming to City Hall, and hopefully we'll see you next Tuesday. What? Please take the stairs. Do not take